All right, so this is going to be the tutorial for the Tic Tac Toe Shelf. I have this labeled in my file here as Tic Tac Toe Shelf with a border because you could also design this where you just have the two vertical and two horizontal dividers, which hold each other together without the border around it. So depending on what exactly you want to do, you may decide that you want to design this project, but you don't want the border around it. You can certainly do that. Another option you can do with this project is you can design this with or without that back. You can leave it open. So if I hide this back here, you can leave it open where it looks just like this. You can also, like I said, design it without the border. So if we turn off the top, bottom, and sides, you could design it so that it looks something like this. And you would probably want to do something to dress up the edges just a little bit. But I think all of those options are pretty good ways to go. For this particular project, and you'll see on the plans that I have posted, all of the openings when you have all of the pieces in place, that is. So all 9 of these openings are designed to be 6 inches by 6 inches. So they measure perfect squares, and they can be modified based on what you want to store in them. The number of spaces could also be changed in addition to the dimensions being changed. Besides this being 6 inches tall and 6 inches wide per compartment, I also have a design that all of these pieces are 6 inches wide. So the shelf itself will be 6 inches deep. If you add a back, you have 2 different choices. The simplest way is like I have designed in this file right here, where the back is just kind of covering up and attached to the rest of the shelf, but you can still see that edge of the back. There's another option, which I don't have designed here, but we can do this way, where we have the 4 border pieces, the full depth, but then all of our divider pieces a 1/4 inch narrower, which would then allow us to make a rabbit cut on the back of our border pieces that the back could set inside of and be hidden from on the sides. So you would only see the back when looking through the front, but from the sides you wouldn't see it. In all cases, this is generally meant to be hung on a wall, and we do have hardware for you to use to hang on the wall, or you can mount it via some other hardware or method, depending on exactly where you're going with it. So let's get to the plans. So if I come over here to my drawing sheet, you'll see sheet 1 should have all of our assembly info. I have a couple of notes on here that all my boards are going to be 3/4 inch thick. We can change that, but that's a pretty standard thickness for a project like this. And then also here is the note where I had just mentioned where this shelf is designed for 9 openings that are 6 inches by 6 inches square. And then I have some general assembly data here when this is fully assembled. Using what I have here, it's going to be 21 inches by 21 inches and 6 inches deep. And then here are how all of the pieces go together. On page 2, I have my bill of materials with somewhat of an explanation here on how to make sure your pieces fit together. This, along with the dimensions, should hopefully make sense, specifically if you want to make any modifications to your sizes. And there is an explanation there as far as the dado cuts and the rabbit cuts and how they should fit together in regards to the thickness and dimensions of your other pieces. And then your 3rd and 4th sheet has specific dimensions and drawings for the pieces. Some of them only have a single view because, again, the only other information that would be in any other views is the thickness, which we know is 3/4 thick. I only have 4 pieces shown in the plans here because every one of those pieces has a duplicate. So there's actually 8 pieces total, 9 if you include a back. But I only have plans for 4 of those pieces because, again, each one of those four has a duplicate, so there's no reason to make a second set of plans for an identical piece. You just label them as having pieces like we have here. And then if you are going to make a back, you can, of course, make plans for that. But typically, we wouldn't make the back until everything else is done. And that is because, well, we want the back to fit exactly what we have. So if we're off on any of the cuts that we make when we're designing this, we want to make the back to fit. And we wouldn't even start the back until everything else is finished and assembled. So let's get into the drawing. So the way I have, or the way I like to set up to follow a tutorial, or if I have a set of plans already and I have them on screen and I don't have them printed out, I like to do what I have on screen here, where you'll see I have two tabs open and I have them sized that I can have them side by side. So I have my plans here in Schoology sized down where I can still read them. And I have my OnShape right next to it, and I can scroll through here and read off my plans while I'm making this. If you want to change anything up, I would suggest getting a printout of this or getting some notes and making some sketches of what it is you actually want to do, so that you're not just trying to make it up on the fly. But if you want to follow along with the dimensions that are here, you can follow right along with this tutorial. And I'm going to walk you through that now. So I'm going to start a new document. And you'll see that a lot of times when I'm doing any plans that I'm planning to show, all of my text is always in all caps. That's just kind of standard across the board for any set of plans that you're making. So first thing I need to do is I need to figure out where I'm going to start. And for this project, there are a lot of places to start. I am going to start with one of the horizontal dividers because no matter which variation you're going to go with, whether you're planning to put a border on or not, you're going to have a horizontal divider and you're going to have a vertical divider. And if you're not going to have a border, you're going to have two of each, which I'm going to start by demonstrating creating one horizontal divider, making a second horizontal divider, and then making the two vertical dividers. And then finally, I'll put the borders around them. So I'm going to start with pieces that are on this page. I'll have this page up. I'm going to start simply by drawing a rectangle that is 20.25 inches by 6. And I'm going to do that in the top view because it's a horizontal divider. So this profile that I'm looking at on the right side of my screen here, I'm going to see when I'm looking straight down on it. So that's where I'm going to start. And like I said, a lot of times I like to turn off the planes that I don't need just so that they're not a distractor for me. And I'm going to draw this rectangle and set it to 20.25 inches. And I messed that up and made it 2.25 inches, so I'm going to fix that right away by modifying that dimension. And after I have that in, I accidentally finished the sketch too quick. I just opened that back up to edit it again, and I am going to draw two more rectangles. And I'm going to make them 3/4 of an inch wide and 3 inches long or tall, depending on how you're looking at it in the screen there. And then I'm going to use the dimension tool. And you can see right behind dimension, there is a lowercase d in parentheses behind it. That's the hotkey. So I can actually just hit D and it goes into dimension mode. You can, of course, click on the button up there anytime. But I can see following these dimensions, I'm going to do 6.375 or 6 3/8 from one end. And then between those two cutouts, I'm going to do an even 6. I don't have any dimension right here because I already dimensioned this line. I dimensioned how wide these rectangles are, and I dimensioned the distance between them. So there's only one dimension this can be, and if I put this in right here, it's going to look like it's going to let me do it, but when I click it in place, it's going to, you can see it's not editable, and it can even give you an error depending on exactly when and where you do that. So I'm going to exclude that dimension just like it's excluded over here. All right, so I'm going to finish that sketch, and I'm going to extrude it to 3/4 or 0.75 inches and hit the green check mark. So now my first part, which I'm going to rename and call a horizontal divider. I have to move that out of the way here. All right, so that first piece is now done. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a second horizontal divider. And you could use the plane tool and do an offset plane and place the sketch 6 inches from this bottom edge here, and that would work. And then you could draw this same piece again. What I like to do instead is I like to use a linear pattern, and I keep this as a part pattern. You have a part, feature, or face pattern. I want to do a part pattern, and I'm going to select this part and then choose the direction. So I click on the direction button here, and then I zoom in. And for this one, I'm just going to click on this line that I have highlighted right here. And you can see it immediately makes a duplicate, but it's not really in place yet. It's just kind of ghosted. So I can change how many of them I'm doing here. For this situation, I only want to make one extra, so I'm going to say that there are 2 instances of this object. And then for the distance, I'm going to make it 6.75. The 6.75 is going to give me 6 inches of distance in between the 2 pieces, plus it's also accounting for the 3/4 inch thickness. So now I have 2 horizontal dividers made, and I'm just going to change these names as I go so that I don't have to figure out which one's which later. All right, so now I am going to draw at least one of my vertical dividers, so this piece right here. All right, so the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to start a new sketch, and I'm going to place it on this surface right here, so I can rotate this around so I can get a good look at it. But this surface that I have highlighted, I'm going to place a sketch on it. And then once I place that sketch on it, I'm going to do a couple more things before I draw anything here. The first thing I want to do is I want to use this Use Project Convert button, so I'm going to click it. And then I'm going to click again on that surface. And then before I do the next step, I'm going to also click on that same surface down on this other piece. All right. Now, after I have that projected, I'm going to come down here to my parts, and I'm going to hide both of those parts by clicking on the eyeball so that it's not in my way anymore. All right, so I know that I have this oriented exactly like I do in my plans right here. So what I have drawn here is that surface that I clicked. That surface that I clicked corresponds to this slot on those vertical dividers. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over, and I didn't click anything yet, but I want to just see that square pop up on that top right corner, and then see how when I move my cursor up, it kind of tracks that spot. I'm just going to go straight up, not any particular distance. I'm just going to go straight up, and then I'm going to click while it is tracking that spot, and then I'm going to drag a rectangle down, and there's no particular distance I have to do. Once I have that drawn, you can see that the rectangle that I drew locked onto those 2 rectangles that I already had drew. And it wants me to specify this length or the height of this rectangle as we're looking at it. So I'm going to use this dimension right here, the 20.25 inches. And then I need to specify this dimension, which is going to be 6. And then I'm going to use my dimension tool to go from here to here and set it at 6.375. And then again from here to here at 6, which it already is because I project it from the previous view where it was correct. So I don't actually have to put that dimension in, but it's nice to know that you're right. And if you want to do that, you can also double check and make sure that this dimension right here is 3, which it is. All right. So at that point, I'm ready to finish my sketch, extrude, select that profile, set it to 3/4 or 0.75 inches. Make sure that you're making a new part. And there is one vertical divider. At that point, you can show those dividers back in again, and I realize that I made a mistake. So I'm going to hide those vertical dividers, and I'm going to go back to my extrude, and I'm going to actually delete it. And I want to modify this sketch just a little bit further. So what I realize I did here was I actually flipped it. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to redraw a rectangle across here and across here. And now when I extrude, I'm just going to select the opposite side to extrude. So I want to make sure that I have my cutout on the side that's going to line up with my other pieces. Make sure that it's 3/4 of an inch for my extrusion. And at this point, I'm going to double check one more thing. I want to make sure that it is lined up right because I could flip it the other way and I can see that the way I had it, it was lined up correctly. All right, now that is what I actually want it to look like. I can see where this piece is solid, opposite of where this piece is. Okay, so now I'm going to rename this piece, call it a vertical divider. And now I'm going to again use the linear pattern tool. And I'm going to use this part. I'm going to choose this direction this time. And see, it went the wrong way, so I'm going to flip it the opposite way. And this one is again going to be 6.75, but it's the distance that you want between them plus the thickness of the part that you are spacing it by. All right, so I'm going to turn on my other piece, rename this new piece as another vertical divider. All right, and now we're getting there. You can see we're a whole lot closer to what the finished product is going to look like. Some of you may decide that this is the shelf that you want to create, and there would be nothing wrong with that. The next step for us, if we are going to make a border around it, is I'm going to scroll down to one of my border pieces, and I have the top and bottom pieces here. I also have the left and right side pieces here. And for all of this project, and for any of the projects that we do, there's a lot of different ways we can approach it. Regardless of which piece I'm going to do here, I'm going to start by placing a sketch on this front edge of one of these pieces. And it doesn't matter if I click here, 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 any of these front edges are all going to give me the same sketch plane. All right, so I'm going to, let's say, start with the top and then the bottom. So I place the sketch on this surface. Now, if I'm doing the top, I'm going to use this Use Project button, and I want to get a couple of locations. So I clicked on this surface, and this surface because they are all important for this particular piece, whether it be the top or bottom that I'm sketching first. So I'm going to start with the top. And to do that, again, I didn't click. I'm going to hover here and get that square, and then I'm going to track it. I'm going to get this square right here, and I'm going to track it. And I want to make sure that wherever they meet, I want to come down a little bit lower than it. But while I'm tracking this location right here, and then I'm going to click and I'm going to drag all the way across, and I'm going to get this location here. I didn't click there yet. And I'm going to draw my rectangle something like this. And what that does is it locked this rectangle's length to match this length right here. And now up here, it's just going to ask me what my height or thickness is. And you can see there that I don't really like how that's lining up. So let me back off of that dimension for just a second. Let me put a different dimension in first. What I didn't like there was this locked into this location here, which is no good. So I'm going to use the dimension tool, and I'm going to actually go from here to here. And that is 3/8 of an inch, so 3/8 or 0.375. Either one will give you the same number or the same measurement. And then we can dimension the overall thickness of that piece right there and make it 0.75 total. And that is pretty much all we need for the sketch. Then we can click on that profile to extrude. Make sure that you are missing where those vertical dividers meet up with it. I'm going to flip it the other direction and make this 6 inches like all the rest of them. Make sure it's a new part. Green check mark. All right. We could do the exact same thing and draw the bottom the same way. I like to take shortcuts where I can. So I'm going to mirror the top. In order to mirror the top, first thing I'm going to do is rename it, call it the top, and then I'm going to hide it. After I hide it, I'm going to make a mirror plane. Right here's my plane tool, and it's already set to mid plane. So to set a mid plane between the top and bottom, I'm going to come up here and zoom in on this surface, click on it. Then I'm going to rotate my object and click on the bottom surface. And that should give me a plane right in the center of that vertical divider. Once I have that plane, I can change this linear pattern tool to my mirror tool. If you have a full screen, you might see the mirror tool right next to it. The entity I want to mirror is my top, and I want to make sure that it's a part mirror, which it is right now. So I got to turn my top back on. I'm going to select it. Then I'm going to click on Mirror Plane, choose my plane. Make sure that this is still on new, hit the green check mark, and now I have a top and a bottom. After I'm done using that plane, I hide it so I don't see it anymore. I can then rename that new piece to bottom. And we are going to do pretty much the exact same thing to make the left and right side. But you can see the left and right side have just a little bit more to them because they're going to have rabbet cuts. So we're going to do the exact same process though. So I'm going to go to my front plane here, zoom out a little bit. I'm going to, not going to extrude, I'm going to click on Sketch. And I'm going to place a sketch on this front surface again. And I'll do the left side first this time. So I'm going to use my Use Project Convert button, and I want to grab this geometry and this geometry. And then I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle tracking this edge, the bottom edge of my shelf, and then I'm going to come up and lock it onto the top edge of my shelf so that it has part of my horizontal pieces the top, bottom, and both the horizontal dividers, and it also extends beyond them. And then I'm going to go with the dimensions that are already there, so I'm just going to hit escape, and I'm going to use the dimension tool then to make sure that my distance from here to here is 0.375 or 3/8 of an inch, and from here to here is 3/4 or 0.75, just like that. Now I also want to use or project this surface and this surface so that I get these rectangles drawn in here, and I don't have to draw anything, I can just project. And then I can finish that sketch and extrude this profile. I'm going to flip it the other way, set it to 6 inches, make sure it's a new part, click the green check mark. I'm going to rename that left side, and then I'm going to hide it to again do a mirror plane, or a mid plane, sorry, because I want to mirror that left side to make the right. There's my plane, use the mirror tool, turn on my left side, choose my left side as the part I want to mirror, click on mirror plane, click on the plane I'm using to mirror, make sure it's on new part, green check mark, and I have my right side now is part 8. If you want to create a back piece, now's the time to do it. If you don't want to have a back, you can move on to creating your exploded assembly and your drawings. In order to make the back, I just literally spin it around to the back, and I'm going to place a sketch on one of those surfaces, and then I'm going to go around and use this Use Project Convert button, and I'm just going to select the lines, and I can even just select the corner points. So if I select that corner point and this corner point, this is probably the quickest way, then just draw a rectangle from corner to corner, green check mark, extrude. It should select everything, but if you get something like this, make sure you select all the little parts that it misses. And if you are putting a back on and using the material that we have here, it's going to be about 1/8 of an inch or 0.125. You want to make sure it is extruding the right way and is a new part. Click the green check mark, and now we have all of our parts created. At this point, you're ready to go into the Assembly tab and drop in your Part Studio document and go ahead and create your assembly, which if you're creating your assembly, we have other demonstrations for it, but right here is your exploded view, and I'm sorry, exploded assembly, not assembly. We already have that here. I like to hide this origin because I just don't like it distracting me. I add an exploded view, and I'm just going to quick go through what this should look like. As you're making your exploded view, remember that as you select each piece here, you're not really looking for a particular amount of space between the parts. You just want to be able to see blank space between them. So you may have to modify slightly where some of the parts are after you move some other ones. Notice that I'm panning and I'm zooming, but I'm not moving my view cube. You always want to keep it locked in to your regular isometric view here where you can see the top, front, and right side of it. Okay, and there I have all of my exploded assembly done. At that point, I can hit done. It looks like it's gone, but it's still there. And then I can go to create my drawing. And remember, your first page should include all of the assembly info. So your first page should look like this right here, where you have your exploded assembly and you have your different views of the assembly with some general dimensions. There was enough information on my bill of materials here that I gave it its own page. But if you can fit everything, the bill of materials along with your assembly info on one page, that's great. And then after your bill of material and your assembly info, then it's just a question of getting plans for each of the individual parts. And even though I have 9 parts designed here, I didn't include plans for the back, and I also didn't make plans for duplicate parts. So I only have 4 different parts shown here. And that is pretty much it.